What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about the things that you should look for when you're looking to move here, as far as the questions that you should ask yourself and how to determine the right area for you. All right, so like I said, guys, today's video, we're going to be covering the areas that you should live if you're going to be moving here to Las Vegas. I'm going to kind of be giving the questions that I think you should ask yourself before you decide to actually sign a lease or buy a house or whatever it may be. Obviously, if you're buying a house, you're going to be doing a little more research than somebody who's just renting, but I think this video will help you out either way. Now, I did do a video about the areas to avoid if you're moving here to Las Vegas. If you want to check that video out, put a card to it right up here. And other than that, guys, if you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe down below. That way you never miss out on any of the content that I put out about Las Vegas and my life here in Las Vegas and just sharing my experience with you guys. So with that said, let's get into it. So the first question that I want you to ask yourself is, where are you going to work? Now, there may be some of you coming here without a job. I would advise you to get some sort of idea about what kind of job you want to do. If you're not sure how to find a job, again, I have a card that I can send up here that goes over my suggestions on how to find a job here in Las Vegas. So the biggest thing is going to be obviously your distance to work. So if you're somebody who has a car, it's going to be a little bit more flexible for you. If you're somebody who does not have access to a car, then you're going to have to select where you live a little bit more. Now, the bus system here is also really good from what I've seen from you guys in the comments. You guys have given me some feedback about the bus system. So just know that is an option. Uber Lyft is also an option. But if you're going to be going to work 5 days a week, I would not suggest Uber and Lyft because it will get very expensive and it's going to cost you more than probably a car payment would. So you got to determine where you're working. If you're working on the strip, then try to be as close to the strip as you can, obviously. Now, seems like an obvious thing to tell you guys, but you want to live as close to where you work because then you have less of a commute. Now, with that being said, that's the next question I'm going to ask you guys is, how long are you willing to commute? Because the thing is, Las Vegas is actually built very, very well. Our freeway system wraps all the way around the entire valley and through the valley by the strip. So you can get across this whole place in about 30 minutes if there's not much traffic. If there is traffic, expect like 45 minutes, maybe 45, 50 at the very, very high end. And that's going to be extremely rare. You're not typically going to be spending 45, 50 minutes in traffic. But I wouldn't live in Henderson if you work in the Northwest. I would always advise that you try to live close to where you work because while you can get there in a short amount of time, it is a good amount of mileage. And the time is not really so much the factor as the mileage because the mileage is what's going to cost you gas and what's going to cost you more money. So if you have a longer commute mileage-wise, you're going to be spending more on gas each and every week. And to get from one end to the other, I would say it's probably 40, 45 miles, like at the high end. So it is a good commute. And if you're doing that every day, 80, 90 miles a day, you're going to be getting gas in your car every like 3 days. So you're going to be spending almost $100 a week on gas probably. So just think about where you're going to live and where you're going to work and how much of a commute you're willing to do in order to decide on an area that you should live in. The next question that I would ask is, what is going to be your budget? Now, these seem like super obvious questions, guys, but they are questions that I advise you just sit down and you actually get serious with yourself. When you're thinking about how much you want to spend on housing, it's very easy to set a budget of say $1,100 and you're going and looking at these apartments and you see this nice brand new community that's $1,150 or $1,200 and you go and look at it and you fall in love with it and you let your emotions take control and then you end up spending more money than you wanted to spend. So before you go out looking at the different apartments, sit down, think about realistically what's your very top end that you can spend and try to go even below it. I always advise to live below your means and what you can truly afford. That way you have some cushion for an emergency, something happening that's unexpected, because as we know, life happens, things get thrown at us, we get curveballs every so often, some of us more than others, but I think it's always better to just sit down, get realistic with yourself on what you can afford and set that number and stick to that number. And real quick, I just wanted to hop in here as I was editing this video and just throw this clip in here. I think something that I've used in the past, because I've been notorious for going way over my budget on my housing, and that's why I wanted to throw this tip in here for you guys. Maybe you're with your girlfriend or your boyfriend, whatever, and they say, we could push it, we can afford it, we could stretch ourselves, let's make it happen. And then you go above your budget and something happens 3 months down the road and you don't have the money saved because now you're over budget on your housing. So what I would suggest, guys, is 30% at the very most should be your monthly payment. You should not be going above 30% of your income, and even that much is high. So try to keep it around 20%, and I think you'll be just fine. So as far as your budget goes, obviously the more of a sketchy area or the more of a bad area that you live in, you're gonna be paying less. Now, if you're looking for a 1-bedroom apartment that's somewhat newer, that's a nice, safe area, I would prepare for anything from $950 to $1,200 for a 1-bedroom apartment. If you're going into a 2-bedroom, you're gonna be looking probably $1,250 and up. And then if you're going into a 3-bedroom, be prepared to be in the $1,400, $1,500, $1,600s, or even higher if you're looking for a 3-bedroom apartment. And if you're looking for a 3-bedroom apartment, it may be better for you to just get a house, because for that same $1,600, you could probably rent a pretty nice house, have a backyard, have a garage, have a little more space, because you more than likely have a family. So just be realistic with what you're willing to spend and stick to that number. I usually use rent.com, apartments.com, trulia.com, Zillow is okay. Any of these websites will be a good starting place, and you can just kind of go from there. If you're looking to rent a house, I would just advise you find some sort of a real estate agent. That way you know who you're dealing with and you're not going into this situation not really knowing this person. You give them a security deposit and then they disappear. At least with a realtor, you have that middleman to always kind of protect you in a way. So those would be my suggestions for just setting a budget and just being realistic with what you're looking to spend while living here. The next deciding factor that I would say on choosing a place to live would be, do you need to drive to work? And if you don't need to drive to work, then try to live obviously in an area that you can walk. Try to live somewhere that you can get there very easily. Maybe there's an apartment right along the bus route that would work really, really well for you, not having your own car. So I would look for places that would allow you to get to and from places very easily and not have to go through as much stress or spend nearly as much money on an Uber or a Lyft just to be able to get to work. Those are great things that you can look for if you're not willing to walk to work, or maybe you just live somewhere a little bit further away. Maybe you can find a place that has access to the bus route. And I'll actually put a link down in the description for you guys to check out the bus system. It'll tell you more about how much it costs, the different routes they have, and all that good stuff throughout here in Las Vegas. The last part that I would talk about is just be aware of all of the fees where you're deciding where to move. If you're looking into an apartment, make sure you take into account any utilities you're gonna be adding. Some of them have like these resort fee style type fees that they add onto your rent. So it may look really enticing going into it. And then when you go to sign your lease, last minute you start to realize that they charge you $80 a month resort fee and $30 a month for trash, sewage, whatever. So just be aware of these different things. If you're living in a house, you're looking to rent a house, you might have HOA fees. You may have higher fees to take care of a pool, to take care of lawn. Make sure before you actually sign that lease, you know what the full amount is that you're gonna be paying. Don't be surprised your first month if it is higher, because we can prevent that right up front by just making sure you read everything that you're signing and just be aware of all of the hidden fees that sometimes companies try to include when you're signing a lease. So those would be the things that I would look out for when you're looking to pick a place to move. Just make sure you ask yourself these questions. How long are you willing to commute? How much are you willing to spend each month? And be realistic with yourself. Make sure that you operate off of your own brain and numbers and doing proper math versus operating on emotion and then getting yourself way deeper than you should have on a place because you fell in love with it when you saw it. Pick a number and stick with it. And then last but not least, make sure that you just look at all the different fees that all of these places charge. Some of them will even bundle cable in there. And it's mandatory. Some of them will make you pay for the cable and internet on top of your rent, and you don't have a choice. So those are all things to be aware of when you're trying to decide where to live here. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up. I'm gonna put a card to the Las Vegas playlist. I have videos about 5 reasons to move here, 5 reasons not to move here. I've got walking videos throughout Las Vegas. I've got everything and anything that you could be looking for in regards to moving here. And last but not least, make sure that you are subscribed. Click that thumbs up button, and I'll see you in the next video, guys.